Okay, it is 6 o'clock. Let's call the Citizen Advisory Committee meeting to order for November 13th, 2024. We do roll call.
Yes. Committee member Paul Lancaster.
Here.
Dean Fisher. Dicky Fernandez.
Here.
Craig Holmes. Ben Glassman. Rosemary Chora. Xerxes Kalilang.
Here.
Cindy Brenneman. Jeff Arbor is excused, Madam Chair, from this meeting. Michael Toe
Here.
and Chair Sue Lester.
Here.
Thank you.
We're good. Thanks everybody for coming. We're pretty last time. Public comments, do anybody on the phone? Any other minutes?
You have thoughts? No public comments, so Madam Chair.
Comments, go ahead and move to item B, which would be to approve the joint board and directors of the advisory committee meeting minutes from July 22nd, 2024. Do I have a motion? Maybe to approve, and a motion from Brennan. We kind of have. Okay. Second, member Lancaster.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Motion carries.
Then right on. Item number 2, public review of draft multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the Coastal Basin Sanitary District is participating in a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. Policy we're participating in a multi-jurisdictional plan. We did plan by ourselves. It probably costs close to $100,000 versus $12,000 to do a multi-jurisdictional plan. The hazard mitigation plan, what the plan does is it identifies potential hazards, whether it's man-made or natural, that can have a dramatic impact to people, property, and environment. Once those hazards are identified, it's up to the jurisdiction to develop a mitigation plan, or how you're going to mitigate those hazards. So, for example, everyone, the CEC outside the community, it should be well aware of the huge project we're undertaking. We're in the design phase now of the Elgin Forest Main Redundancy Project, where we are going to install a secondary forest main that's going to be going underneath by freeway in anticipation. We gotta have our catastrophic earthquake, and the forest main, with our large forest main in the district, out of fail, we have secondary forest main to rely on. That project alone is going to cost us well over $10 million. And so, being participating in the hazard mitigation plan, one of the benefits that I know is identify hazards, but it allows us to be eligible to receive federal funding from the emergency entities. So once this plan is adopted, then we are going to seeking some hazard mitigation grant funds from FEMA to keep our fingers crossed and be successful in that. So the draft plan is complete and is written to staff board tonight. We're under the public review comment period, so it's the opportunity to review and comment on the draft plan. I do have Vicky Osborne, who is the director of emergency management for REROC, who's coordinating this project. REROC stands for Water, Wastewater Emergency Response for Orange County. And so I'm going to invite Vicky up here, and she can explain more about plan and where we go from here. And then also I can hear your comments and suggestions, and she can take that back to the consultant and we make any changes if we need to. So, you know.
Excellent, thank you.
I always forget how to tell you. Good evening, how are y'all doing? So I appreciate the opportunity. So this is what we refer to, I work in the Municipal Water District of Orange County. And one of the programs that's administered there is the Water Emergency Response Organization of Orange County. Give you a little background on me before I talk about it. Prior to working with Water Wastewater, I came over in 2020 for 25 years. Before that, I worked with the County of Orange for the Sheriff's Department as the County Assistant Manager and Emergency Manager for the county. So been around for a while, been around for a few disasters. When we were at the county, we wrote our plans in-house. But this is a very unique and wonderful plan So this is actually the third revision of this plan. It's been in existence for about 15 years. We have to update this plan. This is the first time that Costa Mesa Sanitary District has joined our group, so we're very happy to have them. So we have 15 of the 17 special districts currently part of this plan as a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. So we have created a very tight timeline so we can get it into our friends at the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Their hazard mitigation program with a quest by the beginning of January to get it into FEMA. So we can get approved before our current plan expiration of March 2025. So next slide, please. Thanks.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about what's the who and why we do it. So we have to update this, like I said, every 5 years. You have to have an approved hazard mitigation plan in order to tap into, as General Manager Carroll said, into different public funding. And there's a lot of different funding buckets I will describe and talk about here while I go through this. So like I said, we're leading it, and this is going to open up not just future grant opportunities, but I can tell you the way disasters have been happening in our nation, this will also become a requirement. If we will be able to qualify what's known as public assistance, which is for government monies. So that will probably be coming down in the next few years. They keep talking more and more about it because the philosophy is, I can tell you back in 2005, it was like a this cost analysis of $4 to 1. So every $4 you spent in mitigation, you save in recovery. Now that's kind of up and it's more like 6 to 1 over the course of the past few years. So this is a great study for absolutely business cost analysis when we can get federal funding and do mitigation projects now, because it will save us a lot of funding later for some of the disasters that we have here in Orange County. We're very disaster rich. I've been part of 12 federal declarations for one county. That's actually a lot, but we unfortunately have a lot of things that happen here in our county between fires, flooding. Flooding's actually has been the #1 problem that we've had in our county for many, many years. So next slide, please. So why do we do it? Our hazard mitigation plan actually fits into a lot of other plans. The district has a response plan, an emergency plan, on how they would respond if they had issues or problems during really dark days. So that can use the local hazard mitigation plan, also looking at what some of the hotspots may be, but also what our risk analysis is. What are the different types of disasters and hazards that impact countywide all our entities, but also specifically to the Annex or Costa Mesa Sanitation District? What is the problem that we are going to have here? So if you also then look in the corner for some of our agencies too, they have to do the urban water management plan. So this also feeds into that. This feeds into other sanitation projects that we are also seeing. We are also very soon, I'm sure we'll be seeing from EPA the same requirements as the American Water Infrastructure Act, also being put down to our sanitary districts to do self-assessment and such. So this is getting us also then ahead of the game with that. Next slide, please. So what is hazard mitigation? It's sustained actions, it's identifying projects, capital projects, improvements. So we can have a better mousetrap, we have better infrastructure. A lot of our infrastructure that we have countywide is getting older. It was installed in the 1940s, some of it a little later, some has been replaced, but at the end of the day, with the changes of materials and construction, we see costs rising. So this is what helps an agency be able to seek funding to kind of help counteract some of those funding increases. The actions for the community lets us be less vulnerable, how we would react following different types of disasters. And it also is important, we want the community to be part of this process, because having the community part of this process helps us all understand what we can and can't do. And that's why we're here today with you all. So next slide. So discussing community hazards, I will have what our risks are actually here in the county, just a couple slides, but we take a look at what our hazards are. We look at them, like I said, countywide, and then we really kind of string them down for the entity where it is, because the impacts here in Costa Mesa are very different than what it is, let's say, in South Orange County. So it's important for us to be able to take a look at specifics for an agency. So that's what we do. We analyze what those hazard risks are. There actually is a formula. And when we get to the risk, you'll see if you look at what the actual risk is, what is the probability that it will happen. Then we take a look at what would the actual impact be, what would the asset impact be, and then we're able to rank them based on what we see for that jurisdiction or the entity that's part of this plan. When we identify it, then those projects can be General Manager Carroll mentioned one of the big projects that they are working towards and how they want to seek funding to be able to put that plan, that architecture in place. This would be a tool that they would be able to use to kind of seek some of those different funding opportunities out there. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So this is all of our participating agencies, so they are actually all special districts this time. Last time we actually had cities part of it, so with the cities that have water departments or sanitary district partners. The reason why we don't have cities part of this time is FEMA made a ruling last time when I first came on, cities have to be part of their city plan. But that's okay, because we still work with all of them. So they actually help us with our plans and review them and vice versa. So like I said, 15 of the 17 special districts are participating. The 2 that are not participating, one has a current approved hazard mitigation plan on their own, and they want to keep it that way, which is good for them. And then the other one is so small that they decided that this wasn't a good opportunity. So 15 out of 17, I say that's not bad number. That's pretty good. So we're very happy to have this process going, and we're also very happy to include everyone that wants to be part of it. Next slide. So as part of this, so FEMA actually has what's known as the Hazard Mitigation Program. And the way it works is there is an actual pre-disaster mitigation program. Then there's also one that follows disasters, and those are known as 404 and 406 monies. That's how FEMA refers to them. Those are available to usually the jurisdictions where the disaster happened. But lately, unfortunately, we've had so many disasters, they've been making these available statewide. So people will see notice of interest of, hey, there's some mitigation funding, please go ahead and do it. It's important for us to keep that because you have to have a pre-plan to be able to apply for those things. So why do we do hazard mitigation? Because it reduces injury, it reduces loss of property, and it's an important part. FEMA also updated guidelines that the communities have to be more involved with these plans now and have input. So they made a big change. The only challenge we've had is when they wrote the guidelines, they were written for counties and cities. So we were trying to help FEMA learn what special district actually is. Because nationally, special districts aren't recognized in federal legislation or anywhere else, unlike it is here in California, it actually is in the government code. So we are helping them with how we reach out to the community, how the community, our customers also then reach back to us, and how our boundaries aren't just in necessarily one city. So it makes it a little bit more, challenging. But we are working with both the state and with FEMA to understand that. So once we get this plan approved, and we'll get it approved, down below the eligibility for FEMA grants you see there, so there's the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, that's a competitive bid for funding that's usually available. We as infrastructure also have access to something we call BRIC, BRIC, which stands for up there, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities. That's a lot of times when we see our infrastructure money come through, and we can apply for those so they can go ahead and put projects in, and we can try to keep that money. The flood mitigation assistance, that's one that most people usually have heard about, so we actually do a lot of that on the county side, for the County of Orange Public Works access the flood control district. So some of their projects that they do for flood management also entail impact what happens here at sanitary district just because of the way our floodways go. So it kind of all goes hand in hand that we work together. Next slide, please. So what are our goals? So there's obviously a lot of goals up there in really small, tiny print. I apologize, but it's hard to get everything on one. So one of them all obviously will be to create or minimize whatever impacts we may have on a critical infrastructure. How do we make it stronger? How do we rebuild it? How do we make sure we improve on what we currently have so it will last another 20 to 50 years? We want to minimize security risks even to water, wastewater. We have become a target. We have a lot of cyber issues that's happening nationally. You may have seen recently something in articles about American Water. So we are using this, even though cyber is not considered to be a hazard mitigation project, we are still listing it in ours so people become aware that that's something that we are very much about. So all the other things, improve public outreach, like I mentioned, make sure the community is part of our process. We want to hear from everybody. We want to also help eliminate or minimize wastewater, recycled water spills and overflows. So we want to make sure we continue on those projects and we really push those out. Also looking at our water qualities for potable water supplies. So our potable water agencies also have their goal that they really want to have in there. And overall strengthen our emergency response. which means we can provide additional training, identify some of those things that we need to do. So when we get mitigation project, we make sure that our employees and such are safe at the same time, so we make sure they go hand in hand. Next slide, please. So, what hazards are in the local hazard mitigation plan? So we have coastal hazards, so we look at coastal erosion, we look at what happens when we have storm, sea level rise, we look at a lot of those climate impacts. A lot of times I have seen folks across the nation, or when I talk with folks about hazard mitigation, they will do climate change all off on their own. We decided that we are going to really make FEMA happy, and we are doing climate change in every single one of our hazards, including what that impact is and how we see it, how it's changed some of our hazards here in Orange County. So we are putting climate change in every single one. Seismic hazards obviously are a big deal for us here. Everyone always talks about San Andreas. I always love to talk about the Newport Inglewood fault that runs right down the middle of Costa Mesa. If you didn't know you runs that for you, Costa Mesa City Hall, right on the phone. There's some good play, right? But human caused hazards, contamination, saltwater intrusion, that's another one we have, hazardous materials, power outage, obviously cyber terrorism. So there are some critical impacts or things that we look at. So when we go to the next slide, we took a look, obviously, at what our countywide hazard ranking is, and what is that impact? So number one, actually for us, is power outage. And some of the challenges that we have with power outage is, in order to move our water and our wastewater, you have to have either a pump or lift station. And when the power goes out, what do you need to have on those to continue operations? You need to have generators. So there's a fun thing happening starting next year that we will not be able to get diesel generators. The legislation passed and such, so we look at that and we rank that, because it takes a lot of generators in order for us to push that forward. So power outage is a big threat for us countywide. We have some agencies that have done some great planning and they have a lot of backup generators, but for some, we also have some, but then when they have to cycle out, it's going to be a challenge. So that's one thing we identified and we're working on the side also with regards to legislation. So if you look up there, wildfire, everyone used to have earthquake up on top, but now wildfire has become an impact. And it's not just wildfire like you've seen recently with the airport fire that are up in our hills, but we have different flood channels that have some weed overgrowth and other items that, fires can happen anywhere. We can also have fires to the Apple infrastructure we have. We could have one of our lift stations catch on fire. We could have a pump station catch on fire. And that in turn is going to impact what happens to the rest of our service area because we have to repair it. So there's all types of different things that we looked at with the 15 agencies and we came with an overall ranking. So as I mentioned, as you see here, it talks about the probability. So the ones on top, the probability was set as high. The affected area, the impact, would it be like a really high impact? Is it a primary impact or a secondary impact? I like to refer to secondary impacts and explain those as cascading events. We have an earthquake. The earthquake didn't do anything to the infrastructure here, it all survived. But Edison had a challenge and they lost their power, and because they lost power, it impacted the district. That's an example of a cascading impact. Or if we lost communications, if we lost telecommunications, if we run SCADA system, that's a cascading impact. So that's kind of what was the secondary impacts versus primary. So what do we depend on? So we look at what else we depend on to make sure our stuff operates when we need to, and then you're assigned a score. So that's kind of what we do with the hazards countywide. Next slide, please. So we put the plan together, and right now where we currently are is the public review. So that draft has been shared with y'all to take a look at, and we want to make sure that the public takes a look at it, asks questions. The annex for your district is on your website. There is a master plan, there's an umbrella plan, the way we set up, there's an umbrella plan where I talk about countywide, because that's what I do, is countywide. And then every agency participating has their own annex, and it will get more specific as to what is happening here at the district and what your risks are, etc. So we are currently trying to get it, like I said, to the Governor's Office of Emergency Service, their Hazard Mitigation Division by December 1st, with the goal to get it to FEMA. And then the request I will have and be making a FEMA on behalf of all my agencies that I work with is approval pending adoption. So we're going to ask FEMA to go ahead and approve it because that plan has to be adopted by the council, by the board of directors for each agency participating. So with 15, that might take a hot second to get a moment, so that's why we're gonna ask for approval pending adoption by all agencies. That's what I did last time around, and they went with it, and we're good with that. Next slide, please. So what's the important piece then of public participation? Like I said, we want to make sure that you are engaged, that we can provide you online engagement. You can also have in-person engagement. This is an example of that. If you want to call, ask questions, by all means, you are able to call me. I'm sure that our board is open to questions also, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm sure Mark's open to questions also. I'm happy to answer any questions at any time. You can reach out to me. Our goal is to make sure that we set up the districts for success, and we want to do that especially by involving our community and making sure that you have the opportunity to be part of our planning process. Next slide, please. So with that, here is my contact information. You're more than welcome, like I said, to reach out to me anytime, and I will turn it back over to you, sir, if you want to close the comment. Any questions for me before I step away?
Here's a question actually.
Sure.
So you mentioned that the federal government, for the most part, doesn't acknowledge special districts.
Correct.
So what would happen if somebody swoops into office and says, not gonna happen?
So I'm happy to report to you that the House of Representatives is already drafting a bill that should be introduced once we get past the transition of January, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. But once we see the new, there already is draft language to adopt a definition of special district to recognize it nationally. I'm also working with AWWA, that's American Water Works Association, and they are also, especially in DC, working on this project. So that's our goal, but we are recognized in California. So you understand how FEMA works. California, the governor's office actually is the one that applies for funding on our behalf. And then they consider us a pass-through. So they'll say, California, you're gonna receive $100 million. And then what California Office of Emergency Services does is they put out a notice of interest. They want to know who wants to apply. You do an application, you include the business cost analysis with the project write-up, if you've done any architecture on it, any drawings. And then they actually will treat us as a sub-applicant. And then they will do pass-through of funds and fund those projects, and we actually work straight with CalES, who then will report on our behalf to FEMA. That's actually how it works. Sir.
Mickey, I have a question, but before I do that. As you guys probably know, that our district is a member of the California Special Districts Association, CSDA. They have been actively working on getting that federal recognition, and like Mickey said, we're about an inch away from it being approved by Congress. Once that happens, it opens up not only stuff like this, but it allows us to get federal grants and a lot of other things that we don't. The staff at CSDA has it as probably their biggest priority from a legislative standpoint. So we think that that's gonna be, like Mickey said, once we have a transition to the new government, then there's been no opposition from Congress.
It's didn't go to the court, I can. Like something like that, so as President Chair said, CSDA had worked closely with other state associations, and they were successfully to get a actually bipartisan bill that was written by Congresswoman in Colorado, Congresswoman in Texas. It did pass the House, it did pass in the Senate, supposed to go to the vote on Congress this month. The last step, supposed to go to the vote this month, and if they approve it, then they will recognize special districts on federal law books, so we codify, we define special districts, and it'll be law. If they don't pass it, because it won't pass all over again. That means it's gotta go back to the House work, go back to Senate. Talking to CSDA, they're very optimistic. You know, there's no, I mean, there's nothing
Really,
that.
no reason that we're doing that.
So they're very optimistic.
The challenge that we have is in most places across the nation with water in a lot of other places, and even sanitary, are private and for profit. We are one of the few states that actually have so many special districts that are water wastewater. And I'm excited to hear that. I didn't hear what's going on. I heard that was fun, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
So it's a big project for us, but regardless what happens at the federal side. When California gets it, we are recognized, our independent special districts and also our dependent special districts are recognized here in the state of California as part of the government. So as long as we have California monies coming, we can apply. Now, if we have needs for the current time, if we wanna ask FEMA for more additional funding and such, that's what we have to do with our governor's office to make sure that we stress the importance of hazard mitigation and explain again, we have draft language that we can explain what it makes after special district and we are in fact will be on entity.
Maybe my question,
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, no, you're in charge. So once this plan is established and adopted. I see an opportunity for the districts to. Take the plan and present it, we all have to have insurance on our districts. We actually are insured through something called the Special Districts Risk Management Authority. And I happen to be a board member there. Is there a way we can take this plan and use some proactive mitigation to present to these insurance? Either could be to the Aqua JPA, could be the SDRMA. To try to get some credits on our insurance premiums, because we're taking a proactive approach to what we insure against, those hazards. I can see that as a real benefit to all the districts to be able to do that.
I can see that, Director Schaefer, but I will say, I know some very strong mitigation plans in different counties, and I'm talking about the community now. They can't get fire insurance, and that's the normal community, they're like, oh, we have a mitigation plan. I don't know if it can be used for a special district, that is a very interesting question that I will take back and ask.
Okay.
But I've never seen it applied in that regards.
I'm gonna present it to the SDRMA board and say, hey, here's a plan that's gonna, reduce or mitigate a lot of these hazards that we insure against. We owe it to the districts to give them a premium credit.
Because I know at the county level, so the county board of public works act as the flood control district, and every year they have to do community rating. Which kind of impacts your flood insurance, and they actually handle this as having a mitigation plan, so you know what? You work your way, I'll work my way, but you will be do.
Sounds good, thank you.
We have a little other question here, so we can-
Yeah.
Sorry, Bruce, sorry.
Vicky, you mentioned something about the weaknesses in terms of the regarding the diesel generators. Are you talking something in terms of like legislative issues regarding the these generators?
Yes.
Are we talking about fuel supply and storage? Are we talking about maintenance? Are we talking about environmental concerns?
Yes.
Operational challenges?
Yes.
We're talking about all these things, but what is the highest threat to this infrastructure of these generators?
So the challenge that we have right now, and it's not so. They passed it, we wanna go green, and we're supposed to be an electric state by 2035. But they already have instituted that they want certain organizations already by 2025, if you have certain fleet that's aging. To replace that fleet with electric vehicles. They've done exemptions for law of fire, there's no exemption currently that's been put in place for public works, water, wastewater. So one of the challenges that we have is the current technology out there, the EV vehicles that we have for our fleet, for our agencies. Also help drive our tools and equipment. They last about 2 hours. And then they take 8 hours to charge. And then we won't be able to purchase diesel generators, and diesel generators are backup power. So we run into some of these challenges. So there is currently CARB, which is the California Air Resource Board, is actually going to be the governing entity over it. They just released some potential of if there is fleet that will be used for mutual aid purchases, which pretty much our different agencies will do. If there is a sewer issue or something, we ask for access, we usually have partner agencies that provide that. So my quarterly meeting with the operators and my agencies is actually Monday, and I'm gonna be walking through what that process is, that I'm part of. Fingers crossed, we get all the applications.
Do you see a possibility of federal mandates, overriding state mandates, like regarding requiring use of electricity and basically the elimination of diesel generators?
State law usually always gets followed, and I'll give you an example, there's federal OSHA, and then there's Cal OSHA, and that's our operational safety. Our state OSHA follows over as with the federal, they'll look at the federal for guidance, and then our state also has the opportunity to go above and beyond, and that's what we have.
Rosemary, is that a question? I think it's more of a couple of comments, one for Vicky and then a few for Scott. When I was looking, I think it was maybe slide 7 where you're talking about your goals. I thought I saw a lot of water and wastewater goals, but I didn't really see a lot of solid waste or waste management goals. And I know you talked about, you know, some of the hazards being, say, lack of power, but I would like to see, at least in one of the goals, the management of waste and debris, because especially if you have, say, we've seen some of these massive floods, and you've got a lot of cars all piled up or, homes or structures that have been destroyed. You get back to your underground facilities like a water line, grid station, a sewer collection system. You have to remove the debris that's in that area, so I would like to see a little bit more when it comes to solid waste and debris management.
So when we say wastewater, that's just the umbrella statement to talk about our wastewater agencies, but it describes all of that down the line, I promise you that.
Okay, I still would like to see, at least in that goal, something about,
I would be happy, yeah, you can add something to the goals and it, sure.
thank you. And Scott, I would love to see maybe another agenda item for a future meeting to discuss how this type of plan will impact, who's that going to, I think it's me. CIP projects, master plans, mutual aid and mutual aid payments. And then also a discussion about how the district is coordinating or plans to coordinate with the city and other agencies in the region. You have a question for Vicky?
There's a question about the grant, even the grant programs, regardless of the change in power law. Officially designated or recognized special districts for variety of purposes. All the FEMA funding does pass through to the state in allocations, and then CalES working with the applicants regionally or locally then allocate those funds. So they'll still continue, that process will still continue. But there could be other grant programs in which
Correct.
the district will be eligible to apply directly as an entity.
So there are different type grant programs. I touched mostly on the hazard mitigation program, which is a FEMA program, but there's other funding that we see that come through, you know, the state water control board that we see come through CUEA. They even apply for some, they make those available. There's a lot of different funding options that are out there. Hazard mitigation a lot of times focuses on it, but it doesn't mean that if you have a plan and you say we have this plan that we can help you with other grants you might be seeking. Because it shows you diligence that you are trying to do with resiliency and make things more stabilized in the event that we have a disaster.
Okay. And then in the, this is a joint mitigation plan, obviously, pulling resources together and special districts of all. We're looking here, in Orange County, if there were, the grant program, the mitigation, or the BRIC program, for instance, $100 million from the state. Are you applying, you're applying on behalf of those entities can apply directly to through CalES when that becomes.
My job is to get you an approved plan, so when you see it, whatever agency is part of it can go on their own. To give you an example, Multnomah Water District actually just had a $10 million grant and part of it was because out of mitigation, it was mitigation grant. So there is opportunity, so every agency that's part of that can apply on their own goodwill. My job is to make sure I get a plan approved by FEMA so you can apply.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for letting me here.
You have some follow-up comments for us? Anything on that?
Well, I can just add on, as we mentioned, the number one issue is the power outages, and I can tell you, we have 20 lift stations and go back to 2011, what do you remember this? We didn't remember this, back 2011, San Diego County had a massive power outage. It was human error. The entire San Diego County, parts of South Orange County lost power. As a result, City of San Diego had a massive sewage bill because they didn't have backup generators. But before that, after that power outage, a couple days later, I had a meeting with my staff. And what would we do about having Orange County? We were all blacked out. Do we have to back up our location? We have to know. And so that started the ball rolling, and so, the board approved the study on where we can put permanent generators, at our pump stations. Right now, we have, at eight of our lift stations, we have permanent redundancy power, whether it's bypass pump or generators. And then we have 12 portable generators for our lift stations. So there was a massive power outage in Orange County. We have enough backup power for all of the stations.
For how long?
Well, as long as we get the fuel, as long as we have the fuel. We've done analysis on how long the generators will power, and so we have, like, in our EFC room, we know how long the generators will run and when we need to acquire fuel. And ReRock has, assistance on, they have a fuel trailer, so we need any kind of fuel, they can help us bring fuel in. But I mean, as far as the power outage goes, Costa Mesa Sanitary is in regular power. It's my concern, zero place, that's my concern.
Yeah, so if the whole, they're not gonna sell diesel generators anymore as of 2025. Is the district having any conversations about like buying us some extra stuff before we can't buy anything anymore?
Staff had presented to us at least a year ago, that, maybe not that long, but different alternatives for generators.
We look at hydrogen, we have a little bit of natural gas, actually a gas generator. We look at hydrogen, there's just not a lot of options out there right now. So, fortunately, all our generators are relatively young, the portable generators, but when they're due for replacement, we'll have to prompt maturation.
It seems like, the mobile generators are kind of a quick workaround. And even if you just have to store them just to the border of Arizona. And it's even if you have to lease it, and just for the, having access to the emergency, having a lease plan of getting emergency ready, ready, and then just ship it over and including the, the mobile generators and the fuel supply to go with it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in California.
Did you want to open it as much as you can, so for you get a generator for, they line up that one.
So we are starting, we are, our next conversation project, which is Bay Bridge. We looked into alternative sources of energy besides diesel, but that one will have diesel.
You are used to template generators too?
We're using Tesla batteries, we have 2 million Tesla batteries to supplement the power generation. Yeah. So we're close to energy independence, but not quite in that.
And then, the public survey, is that live right now, or is that something that's coming?
We've already, that means posts are very done, it was on our website, we posted it on social media, so we did advertise about that. So right now, we'll have the draft plan on the website, for public comment review, and that's what this tonight's for as well, just comment review.
Okay.
Then the board is finalizing, approving the plan in estimated March.
Yeah, the board's gonna review the plan later this month, the draft plan,
Oh.
it's in the draft,
Draft.
but when we can tell it's ready for adoption, we'll bring it back for adoption.
Perfect. Any other comments, questions, we're good? Okay, thank you. Again, thank you, Ms. Scott. Next items. Receiving file progress report on the 3 cards below.
Yes, so how many has received the blue cards already? Anyone? All right.
Oh, I was just asking for.
All right, very good.
It's like-
So, well, we're halfway done, I'm pleased to report that, CNR has delivered, over 12,000, blue cards. And they are on pace to deliver over 23,000 cards by mid-December. They're delivering 650 cards a week. We do, receive from time to time some complaints. We are logging those complaints. As of November 4th, we received about 73 complaints, and feel like that's a little bit, but it's still less than 1% of all the cards we delivered. One of the complaints we're receiving is regarding, sometimes, CNR accidentally removed all the cards, or they took the wrong size cards, or they took one too many cards. But once we receive word of the complaints, I notify CR, they are on it, quickly and resolve it quite rapidly, so they're doing a good job on that, so. I'll turn over to Mike Carey, share with us, insight on how it's going, but, compensate that it will be done by May 7th.
Thank you, Scott. You should actually have my presentation. Thank you guys for having me. It's great to be back in front of the Citizens Advisory Committee. I really enjoyed the time that I served on this committee. When I was trying to think when I first started, it has to be six years ago or so. Yeah, but seems like so long. Used to sit in that seat right there. As Scott mentioned, we're a little more than halfway through the rollout. Actually, as of an hour and a half ago, we delivered 13,820 cards. We're more than halfway there. As Scott mentioned, there have been a few minor hiccups, primarily in the multifamily areas where it's difficult to determine whose card is whose. There's a lot of areas within the city where there's maybe, let's say, 6 units, and they all place all of their cards along the curbside. We're removing cards as we're delivering. It's easy to deliver the 6 cards for the 6 units, but it's difficult sometimes for us to determine whose card is who that we're pulling. Our rule of thumb is to err on the side of caution and leave the cards if we're unsure, and then wait for the phone call to come in to take. We've been pretty nimble in being able to do that on the fly, whether it be same day or next day. So we've been able to recover those pretty quickly. In the single family neighborhoods, it's been a little more seamless. We have noted that there's been some confusion that residents are unaware that we're going to be that we're going to be taking away one of their current mixed waste cards. When they finally realize after where they have questions. Also, what we're doing is we're delivering all of the recycling carts first, so they're loaded on the trucks in order of where they're going within the neighborhood. Or if you have requested an additional or a different size now landfill cart, if you're changing sizes of those, they're loaded in order in the truck. So what the truck is doing is going through the neighborhood, dropping all the requests off, and then circling back after the truck's empty to pick up the extra mixed waste carts. There has been a little bit of confusion about that. People will call in right after the recycling carts drop off and say, hey, wait, the guys can pick up my existing mixed waste cart. So we're telling people, leave it out, we're gonna be back, the truck's gonna be back. Again, the other challenges have been the alleyways in multifamily properties. I can think of one near President Schaefer's former office back there, the alleyways behind that office. Hard to determine whose cards are whose. I think we've done a pretty good job of it. We haven't, as Scott mentioned, less than 1% complaints on our end as well. Another component of what we're accomplishing by the end of the year is providing organics cards to the approximately 3,000 residents within Costa Mesa that have been previously organics exempt. Those residents will be receiving postcards or going out basically Wednesday. I think they were mailed yesterday. So people who have not had organics cards are getting a postcard notifying them that those are coming. They will all be delivered in December. Unlike the recycling cart rollout and switching of the trash cart size, we determined that if those people had been previously exempt from organics, they probably only need the smallest cart possible. They were exempt for a reason, and typically that's because it was a condo or a townhome that doesn't have any landscaping and probably doesn't need 65 gallons worth of food waste. I hope no one's generating food waste. So everybody's getting a 35-gallon organic cart. They are welcome to clearly have a larger one if they want after they get delivered that 35-gallon. Are there any questions about the rollout?
I have a few questions. So people were given so much information and so much notice to change their carts and all that, and they didn't pay attention. And now they're stomping their feet and asking if they can still get carts changed, which I know they can. But don't they have to wait now until like January 2025 once everybody that's already ordered or not ordered? Like you need to get everything out now, and then if somebody decides that they want to change a cart size, they can do that, correct? But is it like January 2025 is probably the target for that?
That is the target, because we're on schedule to finish the rollout by mid-December.
Okay,
And then we're gonna head into it's actually the same crew that's delivering the cards, so they're gonna be doing the Christmas tree collection program. So we're phasing into Christmas tree season, but then you can get your different size points.
okay, perfect. And then, I know there's been a couple situations where people's cans didn't get picked up after the new ones were dropped off. I've just been telling everybody, just leave them out there, I'm gonna get them next week. How long should they wait before they notify you to let you know, before they notify CRR to let them know that their street was missed, or there's some confusion there, cause I've been telling people, you know, give it a week, so you guys aren't getting pummeled with calls, but like, what's the most efficient way to handle that?
Ideally, if you didn't get your cart pulled during the day you got your recycling cart delivered, we want you to call right away, because then we can, we've been nimble enough to be able to correct that very next day.
Right.
Because we can say, just leave it out, those trucks are gonna be in the area anyway, we'll swing by and pick up those ones, and by the time it comes to the next week, we're almost not sure if you intentionally kept that card, want to be charged, if it's gonna be picked up or not,
Right.
if it's full, if you want it service. We would prefer the communication sooner.
Okay. And then everybody's still entitled, if they want, they can get an extra organics card at no charge.
Right, have up to 2 organics, that's it, no charge. And then if you did want, more than your one allotted landfill card, the additional one would be $9 per month.
Okay, well, that's what I've been telling people that say they're keeping their card. Like, okay, you're gonna be charged $9, and they complain. And I say, look, you should be celebrating the fact that you haven't been charged for extra cans that you already have for the last 15 years. And shut up about the $9 or give it to the trash man. And I'm like,
We say it a little nicer.
well, I don't, because there are people that I told to go online and read everything and they didn't, so.
We have found,
These are people I know, not strangers, I'm not strangers.
we have found that the first week after we deliver the recycling cart, and we're going back to service, that there's not much in it. So I think people are getting a little learning curve, but by that second week, there's stuff in it and it's full, so we're literally noticing some overflowed recycling carts and minimal amounts of waste in the trash cart, which is,
Nice,
that's the goal.
Yeah.
As long as they're flattening those boxes.
Yeah, that's right, they're breaking down those boxes.
I sit in my garage and cut up your damn cardboard box.
Barney, what I did was pretty smooth, I think that's probably for me, a lot of my neighbors. We do a lot of wide scene and put out cars and then it's the couple exceptions, probably because they're renting.
Right.
I was pleasantly surprised that I had over Vermont Garden community. But coming this Monday, we have, so they're.
Good.
You have problems with cardboard recycling pirates going through, grabbing some stuff and.
I haven't seen it that much in Costa Mesa. I have seen it in some of our other cities right now because the price of cardboard is up quite a bit right now. So there are scavengers getting cardboard. But those always are cyclical. I was visiting a commercial plaza yesterday in Westminster. And they're having a problem with people going by, but actually they set up a program where scavengers can come and take the cardboard from the designated area. I caution them against that because in my experience, when the price is high, we made an arrangement with the guy to come and pick up that cardboard. The minute the price drops, he quits showing up and now you're stuck with all this cardboard without a program. But to answer your question, I haven't seen it from the residential parts yet. I have heard reports of people scattering cans bottles.
Have you guys done any separations to see what's in the new recycled cart? To determine what's. Is it too soon for you guys to be doing your sorts?
It's too soon to do the characterization for that.
Please hurry up so I can tell my wife what the hell goes in that thing. What the heck goes in that thing or not?
We still get the question, what about this white plastic, Amazon?
No.
Yeah, those are trash.
Anybody else have any other questions? I would just like to say thank you. My mom got her shiny new cans and I got mine and I'm very happy about it.
I knew exactly when she was getting hers, so. Wait, here, I can tell you, it's October 8th. No, I'm sorry.
I got mine on the 31st and she got hers on the 2nd.
Second, yeah, which would have been the second, yes, because I got mine the day after all.
Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything you're doing and thank you for being so responsive when people reach out to you with like silly questions and help.
It's our pleasure, it's our goal to make this successful. Want to make it work. We'll see how the people take the organics first. Yeah, I think recycling is a little easier to swallow. The organics in townhomes and condos is a challenging proposition for some.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along, review, because we don't have to do anything with that, right?
No.
That's it, okay. Review proposed adjustments to fixture and plan check fees and recommend board adoption. Strategic goal number 8.2.2.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, there really isn't anything for the review because we're a little bit behind schedule. So I just wanted to update the committee that this was on the work plan that tonight we're supposed to present to you proposed adjustments to our fixture fees and our plan check fees. The point that said we're a little behind schedule. We're in the process, enter a contract with the consultant that recently did our sewer rate studies. We're very pleased with the consultant selected. Multiple roles will present to you as proposed adjustments in your January meeting.
Okay, right. Receive and file CMSD's fog control program annual assessment report.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm gonna turn it over to George Jenkins, who's gonna be doing the presentation virtually. He's with EC Environmental. They are a consulting firm that we hired to enforce our fog control program. And as you may or may not know, under the general order by the State Water Board, for sanitary sewer systems, both we have to regulate.
Just keep down back there, please.
To regulate fast oil for restaurants. And so, Mr. Jenkins is gonna give you an annual report of all the activities that this firm did on enforcing our fog control. And so, Joe, I do there, I'll shoot you take away.
Great, thank you, Scott. Hello, everybody. So, yeah, we can just get right into the presentation here and go to the first slide.
Joe, did you want me to share the presentation for you and you'll just go through it?
Yeah, either I can share it and control it, or if you want to do it, that's fine.
I'm sharing it here, so if you can take it away.
Yeah. Okay, great, thank you. So first I'll just start by going through the different type of services we provide for the district and some of the fog program related activities. And really our core task is to conduct what we call our risk-based FSC inspections and prioritization. What this means is we try to focus our inspection resources on the food service establishments that have the highest risk to discharge excessive fog to the sewer collection system and cause blockages or SSOs. So I'll talk a little bit later about how we do that prioritization and assess that risk. But going out and conducting those inspections of those FSCs is really the number one task and priority. And then when we're out there doing the inspections, we also provide them with fog control program education and outreach materials. We do the initial enforcement actions for non-compliances. So we'll conduct the first follow-up inspection, then also issue enforcement letters as needed. We collect and store all the inspection data in a database that we manage, but we are currently working with the district to integrate that data over to their CityWorks database, which will hopefully go live very soon. we also support plan review for new food service establishments that are either being built or remodeled. So we review their plans and ensure they're installing properly sized grease interceptors and the proper type of grease interceptor. And then if during CCTV or if the cleaning crews observe heavy fog accumulation in the sewer line, we also support source characterization of the enhanced maintenance locations and try to identify, where that fog could be coming from. Okay, next slide, please. So as part of the FSC inventory management, we exhaust a number of different resources to make sure we have all of those food service establishments accounted for and that they're being inspected on a regular basis. And so we periodically throughout the year will review the county healthcare agency data. We coordinate with the different cities to look at business licenses. As I mentioned previously, we support the plan review process, and then also just during our field inspections, if we notice that there's a new facility or if facilities change, then we'll update that inventory. Yeah. So here's just the rolling statistics of the number of FSCs or food service establishments that are currently in the program. So we did see a slight increase from the previous years, which is typical and as expected, but a good sign to see is that as new FSCs open and our numbers increase, we're also seeing a corresponding increase in what we call gravity grease interceptors and hydromechanical grease interceptors, which are the smaller grease traps. So that's what we want to see. We want to see as the number of facilities grow, that the number of grease interceptors also grow with it. It means new facilities are installing grease interceptors. So once we identify a facility and add it to the list, we conduct an initial inspection to identify that facility's risk to discharge fog and to identify what the proper inspection frequency should be for that facility. So in order to do that, we review the presence of what we call high-risk cooking equipment. So these are grills, griddles, woks, deep fryers, any piece of equipment that generates a lot of grease in the kitchens. We review their proximity to an enhanced maintenance location. These are areas of the sewer system that are prone to fog-related blockages. Whether or not they have a grease interceptor will also affect their inspection frequency. And then if they have any special B&P requirements, these are best management practices, such as enhanced sewer lateral line cleaning or, any additional practices that we require of them to help control their fog. So here's how the current FSC list inspection frequency breaks down. So we divide them up between quarterly, semi-annual, annual, and then biannual facilities. And so where we saw the increase is in the annual and quarterly over the last year. When a new facility gets added to the list, it initially is given an annual inspection frequency and is adjusted after that. So we saw a few additional quarterlies this year that we increased to quarterly, and most of them are added to the annual. The goal of the district is to maintain a non-compliance rate for grease interceptors and kitchen best management practices of 10% or less. So for this last year, we had a non-compliance rate for grease interceptor inspections of 8% and a non-compliance rate for B&P inspections of 9%. So this is good news because it's within that 10% goal, but we did see a slight increase in the non-compliance rate compared to the previous year, and we associate this increase with us having more of a focus on some of the FSCs that we knew are having consistent non-compliance issues, and then also where we've seen heavy fog accumulation. So we've really been focusing on what we refer to as being our problem FSCs.
If somebody's new, why not do them quarterly to make sure we're doing it right, as opposed to doing it annually to find out they're doing it wrong and then do it something?
Right. So certainly if they're in an area where they have, they are given a quarterly inspection frequency initially if they have heavy, say like grease producing equipment, or they're in area that's prone to fog blockages, we do want to make sure that we're on them initially to get them in compliance and to, ensure that they're complying with the program. But if they're in a location that's, we don't typically have fog issues, or they're not the type of facility that would generally discharge a lot of fog to the sewer system, then that's when we give them the annual frequency. But a lot of times what happens is we'll update our list. We'll have a list of, say, like 50 facilities, and we're just not able to get to all 50 of those facilities on that initial quarterly basis before we can establish what their proper inspection frequency should be. So our goal is to get to any new facility within that year of identifying them.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, if you go back to that last slide. So once we establish their frequency, though, their frequency doesn't stay that frequency forever. So we do throughout the year, evaluate, are they on the correct inspection frequency, and make adjustments. So we look at their compliance history, if there's any maintenance or CCTV observations that show that they're discharging excessive fog. We review healthcare agency inspection reports, and then also just through our own field observations, if they're doing any illicit activities, they've had any restricted effluents or blockages or anything like that, that can all cause their inspection frequencies to get modified or changed. And so on the next slide, the couple of the examples here where we did that. So the Southwest Plaza, so I'm sure most people know Southwest Plaza. They had a private SSO, is actually considered a public spill because the district sewer lines run through the plaza. So it happened in the sewer line there managed by the district. But through CCTV and inspection activities, we identified heavy fog accumulation in the sewer lines coming from the plaza. So we did increase their inspection frequency actually to monthly. And so since this bill, we've been out there on a monthly basis inspecting Southwest Plaza and ensuring that, all of their facilities are maintaining consistent compliance. Because that is now determined like one of the higher risk locations to potentially cause sewer blockages. And then Triangle Square is another example. This is south there on Newport Boulevard. And so they also had or contributed to a public sewer spill that occurred in October of 2023. And so we went in and worked with their property management to ensure that, because they're responsible for maintaining all the interceptors within Triangle Square. So we made sure that they were aware of this responsibility and that they were on top of maintaining these grease interceptors. So they did have some turnover where they had new property management take over at the square, and they just weren't aware of what the proper maintenance should have been. And so we had to go in and get them on track again to maintain their grease interceptors properly. So we temporarily increased them to monthly, and just recently actually have backed them back to quarterly because they were, showing that they were in consistent compliance.
Follow-up question is, what is the current compliance in 2024 for road users? And Triangle Square is increases occupancy, particularly a lot more restaurants that have opened or operating. So just curious, in 2024, how much compliance are they now showing since you increased the frequency of inspections? Is that
Yeah. Yeah, we are seeing more consistent compliance with these centers. The problem is, and I guess this is kind of our biggest problem with the fog programs, is turnover within food service establishments, but also within property management teams. And so when you have a completely new property management team that turns over and comes in, what they'll do is they'll set interceptor maintenance and management on what they consider as being like the industry norm, which is generally quarterly. But what they don't realize is that for all the interceptors in there, historically, they've been maintaining those on a monthly basis. And so we had to work with them and convince them, no, you need to be pumping these out and servicing them monthly. You need to make sure they have an on-site sewer lift station that needed to be cleaned very frequently, because it's receiving all of the sewer wastewater coming from all the restaurants in the square. Essentially is acting as a grease interceptor. And if they're not cleaning that out, And every time it kicks on and pumps, it just pumps a slug of grease into the sewer line. And so we had, it took a little bit to get them on track. They had to get with their pumpers and get their programs set up and get everything scheduled. But once they did, then they did maintain that consistent compliance. And so we do expect, as FSCs increase to have an initial issue with compliance as we get them into the program. But since the district has such a mature program, it's been operating since 2006 essentially. It's not as difficult as say other cities or sewer agencies that are still trying to get their programs up and running. As I mentioned, we also help with doing sewer system characterization of the enhanced maintenance locations. So these are any areas of the sewer system that's cleaned more frequently than annually. And so way back in 2011, the district had nearly 100 enhanced maintenance locations. But through proactive rehab and rehabilitation programs and proper characterization of the sewer line, it was able to be reduced down to what we have 18 currently. And most of these locations, especially the fog-related EMLs, are because of the shopping center areas where you have a high concentration of restaurants in one area that are discharging to one point in the sewer system. And so we're really focusing our inspection efforts on these areas to make sure they're staying in compliance. Something we also rolled out this year is we had EEC inspectors going out and providing residential education to areas within the district that focus on fog and reducing fog within the residential community. And so we had a program where we went to Iowa Street. So this is just south of the 405 and just west of Harbor Boulevard, and went up and down Iowa Street and then put these door hangers and provided them to the restaurants. Oh, I'm sorry, to the residences. And so this is an example of what the door hanger looked like and the information that was provided to them. And so we're hoping that that residential education campaign will continue, and then we can continue to identify areas where we can distribute these materials. So the best program trend you can look at in determining the effectiveness of your fog program is, how many fog-related spills and blockages that are occurring. And if you're maintaining a relatively low spill rate, then things are going well. But if you start seeing that trend increasing, then you need to keep an eye on that, or you may need to make adjustments. And so year over year, the district had done very well in preventing what we call non-residential fog-related sewer spills. But over the last 2 years, we have seen a slight increase in these numbers. It's still, relatively low compared to other similar size sewer agencies and other programs that we've seen. But we definitely want to keep an eye on these trends. We don't want to see the fog-related spills, continue to increase over time, or for fog to become, an issue in the district that's taxing resources or causing problems. And knock on whatever wood you have around you. So far this year, we're trending back in a good direction.
So, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but before I forget, so on the handout that you have for residential,
Mm-hmm.
one that you just showed us is still referring to organics and mixed waste carts, which some people still have their mixed waste carts, but we're converting to the 3 carts system. So how would that work? Would the 48 ounce, the fluid ounces go into the landfill cart, or would everything go into the organics cart?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was a soft question, I apologize.
These are our hangers, by the
Oh, those
way.
are ours, okay.
So,
Angela
So,
designed
I
them.
thought they made this one.
if someone is generating, cooking grease that they can put, in a can, it's just a minimal amount, then we recommend you can put it in a compostable bag and then throw it in your organic cars, that way it doesn't get sticky, right? This time of year though, this is the one concern we have at this time of year about grease to deep frying, because the holidays, deep frying the turkeys, I know a lot of people. Right, that's 5 gallons of grease, right? We don't want 5 gallons of grease in down the drain or in the green cart. So we will have a drop-off site at the yard, starting December 2nd. We'll start advertising that real soon. And we'll also open it up a couple Saturdays too, so people can bring their buckets of grease, support the grass and no cost. And then we get it recycled and no cost for us as well. So that's how we're gonna address the pride.
Okay. Thank you.
And Sue, we're gonna have to update our hangers because you're right. We produced those a year or so ago, was that Angela? So.
It was applicable then.
And yeah, the only reason I asked is because obviously the presentation is new. At the hangar. So, thank you. Sorry about that, John. Please continue.
Okay, okay, great. So some of the recommendations that we have this year, continue for us to conduct what we call those risk-based FSC inspections. So continue to identify, what is the highest risk of excessive fog discharge that's going to cause a sewer spill, and focus our inspection resources, on those areas, as I mentioned before. And then also track and maintain compliance goals below 10% or less, for non-compliance rates for BMPs and GREs. And so we keep a very close eye on this and see where we're trending, and determine, if we need to make any adjustments or anything to, establish better compliance with the facilities. Continue with enhanced FSC inspection enforcement, focusing on chronic non-compliances. So these are facilities that are continually in non-compliance, each inspection over inspection, and seeing if maybe enhanced enforcement is needed for them. And then, obviously, enhanced enforcement for any excessive fog discharge identified. Continue with those residential education efforts, and as we mentioned, we may need to update the flyers and everything that's handed out, but continue to identify any areas where we're seeing heavy fog accumulation in the residential community. And then also, track the effectiveness of that residential education. So we did some CCTV work out on Iowa Street ahead of this, and we'll continue to monitor Iowa Street to see if there was, any reduction in fog as a result of the education and outreach efforts. This next one is something that we're seeing happen in other agencies in Orange County that we work with. There's doing a lot of studies on additives that they're introducing into the sewer system that's showing positive results in reducing fog accumulation in sewer lines. And so our recommendation is to collaborate, work closely with OC San, because you don't want to put chemicals in your sewer line without notifying OC San, but also these other agencies, and see the results of their studies that they're doing to see if this is a potential for use within the district's sewer lines to help reduce excessive fog accumulation in the sewer system. And then fully transition that fog database over to CityWorks. And we think this will be very beneficial to the district, because they'll have real-time access to the fog inspection data, the FSC data, and they'll be able to track our progress in real time. And then it'll help us too with reporting statistics and information to the district in real time. So I think with that, if there's any additional questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, so. Any extra comments from you? Okay. Committee member comments? Schaefer, let's start with you. Do you have any comments?
No, ma'am,
Then start here and go that way. Anybody? I have a couple comments. We never get an opportunity to say thank you for the community outreach. What's down here was really, really good, and I just wanted to compliment the staff, again, really well attended. But we never get to know who won. Who won? You should send that information out to the committee, since we volunteered here. It'd be fun to know who won those drawings and stuff. Maybe post a picture with our little newsletter or something like that. I also wanted to compliment you on the new landscaping. Every time I pass it, I keep forgetting to tell you, let's send an email that it was really nice, and you guys did a good job on that. And, thank you for, I don't know how people are so confused and I was going homeless with the rollout because I think you guys did a fantastic job on, trying to educate the community. I know I've gone door to door several times just on my street, so if it gets messed up tomorrow, I'm gonna look myself because, I mean, I printed it out. I know you guys sent out emails, you sent out information as ratepayers that when it's coming, mine's coming tomorrow, so this, hopefully everything's gonna go really, really smooth, but I think you guys have done a really good job on outreach, and I don't know why there's been so much confusion and so many negative comments, but I think it's just any kind of change people are nervous about it, but I think you guys did a great job, so. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Cindy.
it. See how it goes tomorrow. I think because we didn't have any last time, I didn't have opportunity we didn't really have an opportunity to talk about this, but the Eco Expo this year was fantastic. I didn't think that staff could do a better job than they did the year before, and somehow they managed to. And there were more people, and I think people participated more thoroughly than they did last year. And everybody was really excited about it, and you guys had some great useful giveaways, so I just want to acknowledge that because the amount of work that has to go into something like that is gigantic. And you have such a great staff here, and I think a lot of people just are used to them being good without saying like, geez, that was a lot, and it looked really, really easy, and it was very well done, so I just wanted to compliment you guys on that.
You're very loud, thank you for that, great, I just do the thing, so. I don't know what you did.
Well, you tired them, so you did something right.
Yeah, but ask Scott how many ice cream bars he ate.
Not
Oh,
one.
Any update on the OCC recycling center? I know there's a third party that's supposed to go in there, but.
Yes, I did email the third party operator and they're frustrated as everyone else because it's from the flip state.
I have an update on that, and I was gonna, thank you for reminding me, because I'll share it with you. We've been in touch with Power Recycle. There are some things that the applicant actually, Power Recycle has, is asking them to work on their application. There were some things missing that deemed it incomplete. And there were other things that they'd like them to improve upon with their existing contracts that may be baked into this contract. The Power Cycle is going to approve it. It may be right before Christmas or maybe right after the new year, but they want to make sure that they're operating to the standards that Power Cycle would like them to operate, not only at the site, but the other sites as well that they manage. So that's the holdup. It's information in the application and it's ensuring compliance with their standards under their contracts and this contract with Power Cycle. So they committed to trying to get that adjudicated now 45 days, in the next 45 days.
Okay, so that's great, so it's still marching along. Are there any upcoming events through the end of the year that we want to encourage people to attend that this district is taking part in, because we don't have another meeting until January?
No event, but again, if you can encourage, if anyone has grease, prior to their turkey, please refer to the drop off site at the yard, because we didn't receive very many participants last year. And I think most of our students have that at the 5%, as you see, but we still have a site available for the public to dispose of their.
Where is the year?
What's that?
Where is the year?
You're at 174 West Wilson.
Wilson and Fairview.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. And then I just want to say thank you to everybody for your participation and your time. Everybody's really busy and traffic and everything that gets mixed in our lives and our days. It means a lot, and I appreciate you. And I just want to wish everybody happy holidays, because
This is it.
pretty much it until then. So I hope whatever and however and with whoever you celebrate, I hope everything is fantastic and goes just the way you want it to.
Thank you.
And on that note, I guess, any other board staff comments? Nada?
No.
Okay, we will adjourn and then our next meeting is gonna be
January.
January. Oh, you know, David? No, I should have David now.
We haven't adopted the calendar yet, but anticipatedly June or January eighth.
Okay, so roughly January eighth, and then if we can continue moving forward to send out reminders, people ahead of time. We have it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Meeting adjourned.
That's a wrap.
Like, all right.
You say that.